You are watching my certified low effort content. I highly recommend watching the video that this is a partner to first, letting humanity take control on my main channel on YouTube. If you were a member of my Patreon, then you could have watched this 10 days earlier ad-free alongside the original release. If that is something that interests you, please check out the link in my description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the video. Some of you may be wondering why I look like this. I haven't done my hair, I haven't shaved, and that is because I thought it was in keeping with the low effort content label that I've designated this video to not put a lot of effort into my appearance. For those of you that care. Anyway, I've got notes for this one. This one's unscripted, so I've got some bullet points. Anyway, you ever seen those videos? Like, those videos where it's, can you pet the dog? Can you pet the dog in this game? Can you pet the dog in GTA? In Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, whatever. Dogs are people in Animal Crossing, but you get the idea. I have two minds about those videos. One of them is that they are a nice reminder that people play games. I try and keep up with a lot of news coverage, and a lot of it's very negative. And so, like, there's a lot of layoffs and stuff, and then when you see a Can You Pet the Dog video, it's like, oh, cute, people like this thing, they like playing the games and interacting with it in this way. They like seeing that your character can pet the dog, that they would be able to pet the dog when they play it. And so I get some positivity from that, but the other part of me is the fun police. I find these videos strange because of what they can imply. Because if you see a Can You Pet the Dog video and you can't pet the dog, in the context of the framework that's been made by that video, is immediately a negative that you can't pet the dog. And if you can pet the dog, it's sort of free marketing. It is a way for people to go, oh, that's cute, I can pet the dog, that's another reason for me to get the game. Obviously it doesn't like cause a game to sell gangbusters, but it makes petting dogs in games a valuable experience and mechanic, which, the fun police part of me is against. One of the reasons I'm against that is because games can be worse for, like, giving you the ability to pet a dog. A lot of games seek to put forward this idea of minimizing context sensitivity. What is context sensitivity? Well, it's when like a button you press is sensitive to its context. So an interact button in a Bethesda game can be steal, talk, open a door, take this item, lift this item, look at this thing, which means depending on what you're near, what you're looking at, where your character is placed, the button you are pressing is always sensitive to its context. A game that tries minimizing this would be, well, there's a few. You have Devil Daggers, which has like two buttons that always do the same thing, more or less, like your movement and your shooting. It's a bit more than that, but the idea is there. You have Tetris, where buttons always do the same thing. You have like a whole list of games, including Breath of the Wild, which might surprise you because you'd be thinking, oh, I thought you could pet the dog in that game. No, you cannot. There is no fishing game in Breath of the Wild. There is no pet the dog, no dog petting in Breath of the Wild, and that's because the game seeks to maximize accessibility and make it so that your buttons always do the same thing. Which, on that note, leads me on to the main thing I want to talk about, humanity, and why you, yes you, dear viewer, are not good enough to pet the dog in humanity. You personally are not good enough to pet the dog. you are unworthy. So if you've played Humanity, this may feel like a stupid point to make because you play as a dog and not as a person. And so a button that would let you pet the dog would interrupt the game flow and fit into the control scheme very awkwardly, because it would basically have to be press this button to get pet, which is weird, like the stroke me button or command. But even when you're standing in a crowd of people, there's no way for them to interact with you. As far as I remember, they don't look at the dog, they don't pet the dog, they don't acknowledge that the dog is there, they just follow the dog's commands, which is like your gameplay input. And obviously there's the context sensitivity part. I hope that siren wasn't too loud. Obviously there's the context sensitivity part, which is this idea that the game's controls would feel broken and its pacing would be broken if you could be pet. And that's a good reason for them to not have petting the dog in the game. But I think in a game where you play as the dog, like the dogs being Golden Retriever or Shiba Inu, you're Shiba Inu in Humanity, you're like the cute dog, and this isn't a huge AAA production that's guaranteed to sell all these copies. They could have wanted like that kind of free marketing that boosts something to put in a state of play. It feels far more intentional to me and far more interesting that they chose not to give you the option to pet the dog, or give the people the option to pet the dog as they walk by. And I think, or I'd like to think, that that is a standing by of the thematic intent of the game, which is, again, you, we, humanity, people are not good enough to pet that dog. Which is the thing I want to discuss, the point of this video. So this kind of leads on to three things, reasons why we are not good enough to pet the dog, and I thought about all of them on my playthrough, and I think they're interesting to think about. Number one is that in not being able to interact with the dog, look at it, pet it, the people, the humanity, the us in the game, humanity, are sort of on a different plane, and it makes it a privilege to experience this story, to be able to look in on something that we're otherwise not allowed to know is happening to us. Like, idea in the game is this sort of like finding your soul and like creating a person out of nothing, and then that person goes on to have their own life experience. It's sort of like this space between life and death where like people are created. And we're not supposed to know that happens, right? We are born and then we have our experience and then we die, and the game takes place in this abstract space outside of birth and death, like between the two. And so it makes a privilege out of the game story, because we otherwise can't interact with it. This is probably quite repetitive. I apologize. Another thing I think is interesting thematically is that in being unaware of the dog's existence, in, you know, being unable to pet it or whatever, the story sort of maintains this fairy tale, fable-like mythology where it could be true. Like, to a non-scientific mind, there is no way to sort of validate or disprove what is being discussed in Humanity. The narrative being told is a mythology, exists outside of life and death, and it's a very abstract mythology at that. It's something to ponder on and to sort of give purpose to one's life and one's experience. And I think it's important that we can't pet the dog, because, like, you know, it lends some truth to the game. It gives you more to think about. It also means you don't get caught up on, like, the ridiculousness of the story. I don't think you should do that in games. Games can be abstract, or art can be abstract. You shouldn't get caught up on whether or not it can happen in real life, but I think it sort of lends more credibility to the, like, thematic narrative of the game, if that makes any sense. And finally, it denies us what we want. We're not worthy to experience petting that cute white Shiba Inu. In my original video, the sort of thesis was about this idea of being controlled by the game, having a lot of my mind kind of swamped by it in a almost overwhelming sense. And this sort of, you know, if you've seen that video, what I'm discussing now sort of lends itself to that video. Like, the dog has control over us and it sort of chooses what we cannot and can do, and it's in a different plane and we can't interact with it, but it controls us. It sort of denies us the ability to supersede the control the dog has over us as people, and it kind of creates this like theism idea, this theism like narrative to the game's mythology, like we're not good enough. And it also makes the steps by which the game's narrative take place more absolute within its context. If we can't interact with the dog, if we can't escape the plane we're on and the dog is on a higher plane, then it sort of means we're on this path. It lends itself to this idea of fate and control again, which was in the original video I made. And I don't know, I find that interesting. I like thinking about it. I didn't want to make this video too long, so because the original video is not that long and this is unscripted, and yeah, nothing more to say, to be honest. Ta-ta for now. That means I got that the wrong order. TTFN, that means ta-ta for now.
I love that.